Welcome to Team 15's presentation on strengthening AI governance at Anthropic.
So on this slide, we have the Mythos threshold where model capability begins to outpace internal governance, specifically in the case of autonomous zero-day exploitation. As shown here, as capability increases, the required oversight rises steeply, but the voluntary policies stay flat, creating a structural accountability risk. This means that voluntary self-regulation is no longer sufficient at frontier capability levels, which creates the need for external multilateral oversight mechanisms to manage risk responsibly. So there are some reasons why this threshold was triggered in the first place. First of all, Mythos showed an unprecedented capability jump from near zero exploit success to over 70%, even in the hands of non-security engineers. Second, the model surfaced thousands of mostly unpatched zero-day vulnerabilities across every major platform. Third, these models emerged as a byproduct of general improvements, which means every lab is likely to face the same issue in its next model. Finally, Anthropic's response was to halt general release and move to a controlled access program with major industry partners. So in summary, this wasn't a narrow anomaly, but rather a systemic capability shift with major security implications. This slide summarizes Anthropic's current three-pillar self-governance model. The first pillar is the responsible scaling policy that sets the rules for how Anthropic manages catastrophic risk capabilities as models advance. It maps capability levels to required safeguards and includes internal and external reviews before deployment. The second pillar is the usage policy that governs how the models can be used in the real world by applying universal standards to all users and adding stricter requirements for high-risk domains. It also explicitly prohibits harmful agentic behaviors like malware generation or advanced intrusion. The third pillar is internal oversight that centralizes accountability. A responsible scaling officer makes go, no-go decisions, and assessments incorporate both internal critique and external expert input. Public risk reports and compliance frameworks align with emerging regulations. The bottom line for leadership is that all three pillars are self-created and self-enforced with no external body certifying compliance, which becomes increasingly relevant as models' capabilities accelerate.
How are Anthropic's competitors handling the safety question? OpenAI has a system that tracks three kinds of risk: CBR in weapons, models improving themselves, and models acting on their own. Google DeepMind focuses on two things: people misusing the model and the model deceiving its operators. They only release it through their cloud platform, which they can watch how it's being used. Meta has promised to stop development entirely if a model gets too dangerous. The catch is that they give Llama away for free, so once it's out there, they cannot actually pull it back. Microsoft doesn't build the riskiest models themselves. Instead, they host other companies' models, including Anthropic's, and put every one of them through their own safety review. It's worth mentioning that Google and Microsoft are participating in Project Glasswing, but OpenAI and Meta are not. The takeaway is that every one of these safety frameworks is voluntary. Each company evaluates its own compliance. There's no independent oversight, and that is precisely the gap our recommendation needs to close. Let's now take a look at the evolving regulatory landscape AI companies must navigate. The regulatory environment is hardening on three fronts at once. Federally, we're seeing executive action and an open question on Section 230 liability for AI outputs. At the state level, California, Colorado, and New York are legislating ahead of Washington, creating a compliance patchwork. Internationally, the EU AI Act is live and other economies are following suit. The pattern is clear. Voluntary self-governance is running out of runway. Anthropic can either help shape the framework or be governed by it.
From this environment of patchwork regulations and reactive suggested solutions, we have a very practical regulatory solution. Inspired by elements of the SAFE proposal, or Senate Bill 2750, introduced by Texas Senator Ted Cruz, our proposal is regulatory in nature rather than deregulatory like SAFE. The stakes are simply too high to simply cross our fingers and wait. We believe a well-designed cooperative architecture must be deployed with transparent participation by the AI industry, downstream corporate and government partners, and modeled representation for consumer interactions to test and certify new AI model releases. This architecture must be primarily funded by the AI and tech firms and overseen by the federal government in a very transparent way. Our proposal centers on a framework of testing sandboxes that are designed for AI firms to deploy new releases fully into a stable, fully functional test environment. The AI LLMs can access all global functionality but cannot train on the interactions in the sandbox. The downstream corporate and government partners can deploy their tech stacks into the sandbox to see how new AI releases affect their platforms. Consumer chat interactions, consumer to agent interactions, consumer agent to agent interactions, and consumer interactions with AI-enabled platforms, such as e-commerce platforms, should be modeled and tested. The AI firms must deploy their new releases into the sandbox for testing for consumer interactions and key corporate and governmental platform partners. We propose that NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a branch of the Commerce Department, should oversee design, deployment, and operation of the testing sandboxes. With NIST leading the way and the AI and big tech industries funding the architecture, we believe consumers are protected, trade secrets are safe, and downstream corporate partners and government entities can certify their AI-enabled platforms with each new AI model release. Specific to Anthropic's unreleased Mythos model, if the rumors of its cybersecurity breach capabilities are true, the testing sandboxes would reveal the vulnerabilities and enable mitigation and/or delay of Mythos release until everyone is truly safe.
The testing sandbox would be an independent safety check on frontier AI, run by NIST with a rotating panel of vetted experts. And critically, no one evaluates their own employer's model. It tests for the things that matter most, such as whether a model could help build weapons or carry out cyber attacks. It would also look out for autonomous behavior and abuse on partner platforms. Testers see the actual production model in a secure environment, and every finding is logged. The key feature is authority. High-risk models cannot launch without sign-off. The panel can require fixes, block releases, or pull a model post-launch if new risks surface. One important distinction is that the Cruz Sandbox Act grants regulatory waivers. Our proposal, however, establishes a regulatory gate. The name is the same, the purpose is essentially the opposite.
This slide shows Layer 1, the duties of frontier AI developers who are the first line of safety but don't have the final word. First of all, developers must disclose emerging capabilities and vulnerabilities, including red team results and risky behaviors as found, to ensure that regulators and downstream layers are not caught off guard. They have to submit each frontier model for independent pre-deployment review, providing required access for evaluation and holding release until required mitigations are installed. They must protect users and platforms via built-in safeguards, monitoring, and clear accountability across labs and partners. Finally, they must defend their systems by implementing cybersecurity, developing incident response plans, and endorsing legal protections against model theft or guardrail bypass. The bottom line here is that developers on Layer 1 own the first line of safety, but their claims are independently verified by Layers 2 and 3. Thank you for taking the time to hear our presentation. We hope this was very educational and informative. So these are the resources we used to create this presentation. We used resources from Anthropic's website along with various sources from regulatory bodies and other sources to compile this presentation. Again, thanks for your time.